Hey, welcome to Avidya Studios. Today we are covering The Lazy Lord Masters the Sword. If you enjoy it, please hit like and subscribe. It all starts with a dream. A young man observes and writes in his diary about a strange man who has come to their village. He has unusually menacing eyes, but the village chief still welcomes him. The strange man is quiet and mysterious. At first, the observer doesn't care much about him, but when he hears the other villagers talk, how some children saw the strange man practice swordsmanship from dawn to dusk, he starts wondering about him a little. 1 month passes by and then another, but the strange man is still at it. The observer hasn't gone to his spot to see him practice himself. His knowledge comes from overhearing the villagers talk, but it was clear that the strange man's existence was giving birth to plenty of rumors. Some say that he is planning on taking revenge. Some say that he is a fallen knight, while others call him a renowned mercenary. The observer wouldn't admit it, but he is also curious, and so, half a year after the strange man came to the village, he decides to watch him practice. He wants to know why the strange man is putting in all this effort. However, reality is often disappointing. When he finally sees him train with his own eyes, the observer's eyes are immediately able to discern that this man lacks any skill or finesse. Despite the effort he has been putting in, he is still mediocre at best. He watches the strange man practice from a distance and then walks away. To him, the strange man was foolish and pitiful. Then, while the strange man continues his daily practice, a new family comes to this village. It's a retired mercenary who came with his daughter and his son. The daughter has that angelic smile which instantly stole the observer's heart. Her name is Rima, and you bet he is going to talk to her. As for the strange man, he has continued his daily swordsmanship training for 3 years without missing a single day. The observer manages to win Rima over after 2 years. He marries her, but even though he was genuinely happy, he still can't help but be curious about the strange man who is still practicing out in the woods. For the past 5 years, all he did was stand in that spot and continued the training. From this point forward, the observer decides to go check up on him every day, whether it was day or night, rain or sunshine, hot or cold, summer or winter. The strange man trained with his sword. We're talking about impossible levels of discipline. The observer rejoices at the birth of his daughter. It's been 7 years, 10 months, and 27 days since the strange man came to their village. The flow of time continues, and then one day, as the observer notes that it's been 15 years since then, he also realizes that he forgot to check up on him today. But just like how the sun rises in the morning and the moon comes out at night, it's only natural for him to train. That's just how it is. Time continues to fly, and the observer becomes not just the village chief, but also a grandpa. He takes a stroll, is greeted by other villagers, and is sort of wondering about the fluidity of life. So many things have changed, except, of course, this one place where the strange man trains every day. It has been 37 years at this point. He checks to see if the strange man is still there. And yes, he was. However, he had already passed away, but his eyes were still wide open and he was still holding on to his sword. The observer laid him down, closed his eyes, and prayed that he may rest in peace. Though immediately, a young man wakes up in his room, exasperated. He wonders if this was all a dream. Now this young man is the prince of the Ferreira estate. It is an important state when it comes to commerce because it essentially connects the neighboring kingdoms together. But there is also something else that this place is famous for. It's also famous because of the Lazy Lord. His actual name is Arin Ferreira, and he is the firstborn son of the ruler. The loss of his mother at an early age left a permanent scar on him, and from that moment forward, until the age of 15, all he ever did was sleep in his bed all day, every day. In many ways, he's the complete opposite of his stepsister, who, despite being 11 years old, practically brims with confidence. She is referred to as Lady Kirill. Going back to the Lazy Lord, he is the one who had that unusual dream about the strange man. Usually, he is almost always asleep, but since he last woke up, he just can't manage to make himself fall asleep again. His body instinctively craves action. He wants to pick up a sword. And so, when an attendant asks him if something is wrong, He replies that he'd like to wield a sword. The attendant is absolutely shocked by his request. You can probably imagine everyone's surprise when he then walks into the training hall. They all start talking about him behind his backs, wondering what he is here for, but he seems too preoccupied to pay any heed to what they are saying. He goes and just picks up the exact same blade as the one that was wielded by the strange man in his dream. It is big, but he somehow manages to hold it decently. His technique and sword handling is still downright bad, though. He sucks. Others begin to wonder why he has suddenly taken interest in sword fighting, and somebody mentions that a young lord from a neighboring state insulted the lazy lord last month, so they decide that this may be the reason why he has decided to come out of his bed. They all guess how long he'll last, 3 days, or maybe just 30 minutes. But Aaron doesn't care. Even though every fiber of his being is screaming in pain and he is breathless, he feels at ease. Forget giving attention to what the others are saying. He can't even hear them. It's like every time he wields the sword, all the bitterness in his heart simply fades away. So, without any regard for his body, he continues swinging the sword until it's already dark. He is stopped by his attendant, and only after stopping does he notice how much time has passed. At night, when he is in bed, his body hurts so much that he questions why he did it, but only 5 minutes later, and he has already fallen asleep. He continues training for the days that follow as well, eats his fill in the dining room to get the energy, and then expands it all when he trains. On the 4th day, a wandering knight shows up and asks the guards that he wishes to see the training hall. The guards were already on their way there, so they just told him to follow them. Once there, they are all surprised that the lazy lord is still at it. The guards had betted on how long he'll last, and looks like the one who said more than 4 days won. The wandering knight, on the other hand, observes Aaron with his experienced eyes. He can tell that this young man is not just trying to pass time. His technique may be pathetic, he can't even hold the sword properly, and his breath is all over the place, but there is something about this boy that makes you pay attention. The wandering knight also overhears the guards talk about how the reason he's putting in all this effort is because of what the neighboring lord said. So he also realizes that the lazy lord will give up sooner than later. Though just then, his sister, Lady Feral, pops up above them on a griffin. A griffin is a legendary creature that has a lion's body, an eagle's wings, and a skin as strong as steel. Of course, it doesn't actually exist, but Lady Feral is a sorcerer capable of breathing life into her own creations. She shows up on her griffin and starts telling the guards off for chatting in the training hall rather than training. This is the 2nd time she has told them off for wasting time. Aaron asks her what's wrong, to which she tells him to stop doing what he is doing. She reminds him that all he has done until now is sleep, and tells him that the newbie guard is better than him. Aaron doesn't say anything in reply. Rather, the one who stops her is his stepmother and Kiril's mother. She is a gentle woman who tells her to stop harassing her brother and advises Aaron to not overwork himself. When they leave, Aaron just goes back to swinging the sword like he was doing before. His focus hasn't faltered, not even a little bit, and the wandering knight immediately noticed this. He is intrigued enough that he decides to keep an eye on him for the time being. Later in the day, while Aaron is asleep, Lady Kiril tries to sneak into his room to apologize for what she said. His attendant informs her that her brother is asleep and shouldn't be disturbed, but she intimidates him with pure aura, and then proceeds to use a doll to deliver her letter. The doll also plays a flute, which helps him relax. As for the contents of the letter, she apologizes for what she said. She was just worried about him. She also asks him to not tell anything about this to her mother, but looks like it was too late, because on the back of this letter there was also a note from the mother. She tells him to let her know if Kiril bothers him too much. Until then, she'll pretend she doesn't know anything about this letter. Aaron realizes that his stepmother and stepsister both care so much for him, even though he has spent so many years sleeping like a fool. This realization prompts him to eat breakfast with his family the next morning. He makes sure to thank his father, mother, and sister for always taking care of him. He is sorry for being a fool, but also mentions that he loves them all. His father replies that he loves him as well, and then also advises him to not overwork. However, Aaron was all right. In his mind, his training is nothing in comparison to what he witnessed the strange man do in his dream. Before long, 2 weeks pass by, and Aaron is still at it. The wandering knight sits by the wall and watches him train every day. He had also thought that the lazy lord was motivated by feelings of pride and inferiority, but seeing him struggle every day makes him understand that his judgment was wrong. This boy has the mind of a blacksmith who hammers steel every day. He has extraordinary levels of willpower, so much so that the Wandering Knight comments that it takes ages for a hero to finally acquire that steel-like willpower, which he is now seeing in a 15-year-old boy. He couldn't help but wonder how great of a swordsman this boy would become. The Wandering Knight then asks the keeper of the training hall if the young lord will get a private swordsmanship tutor, and yes, Aaron's father has already arranged for a tutor. His name is Sir Orlan Jukran, but hearing that name makes the Wandering Knight scream the word no. That man is always just getting himself drunk and screaming at students for presumably nothing. It'll be foolish to entrust a gem like Aaron to him. The Wandering Knight personally sees Aaron's father, Lord Baron, and recommends him to be a student at the Chrono Swordsmanship Academy. This academy is about as prestigious as it can get. It accepts nothing less than absolute extraordinary talent, regardless of one's nationality or gender. Just attending it gives you a higher status than most nobles. To put it simply, this place has a better reputation than the actual Royal Academy. But getting accepted, let alone holding out among all those talented students, is going to be anything but easy. Lord Boren wonders if his son will be able to handle it all. But, as any good father should, he talks to his son about the recommendation letter and asks him if he wants to or not. Aaron asks for a couple of days to properly think this over. He feels a little unsure considering how he has spent his life up till now, but for what it's worth, he doesn't want to lie in despair any longer. So, he makes the decision and informs his father. Just like that, the man bids his family farewell and leaves with his attendant. They send him off with pleasant smiles on their faces. A wholesome family it is. On the way there, his attendant presents him a pendant, which is apparently a gift from Lady Kyril. He grasps it and smiles. His attendant wanted to escort him to the entrance, but Aaron assures him that he can be on his own. From here on out, he's just a mere trainee after all. So he bids his attendant farewell as well, while someone named Brett Lloyd gets himself introduced through his attendants at the entrance. Right after him, Aaron is at the entrance. He states that he is the son of Baron Ferreira, and he has come here on the recommendation of a wandering knight named Sir Bran Somerville. They say that it's an honor to have him here, and welcome him inside. Though as soon as he enters, they also wonder a little about why Sir Bran Somerville wrote him a recommendation, considering how he never does something like that, and especially since this boy is the so-called Lazy Lord. Anyways, Aaron opens the door to the hall and notices how everyone is glaring at him. One of the two knights who are at the entrance appears in front of them all and introduces himself as their instructor, Ahmed. There are 400 preliminary trainees in the hall. The instructor looks around and notices some promising individuals, but the one who stands out the most is a sophisticated lady named Ilya Lindsay. She is dubbed as the second genius from the Lindsay family, but people often comment that she is even more gifted than her older brother. That guy, Brett Lloyd, starts feeling a little insecure, because now that she is here, he can't go higher than second place. The instructor then declares that they are all still just preliminary trainees. In order for them to get official status, they'll have to pass 2 challenging exams, and basically have to try their best to stay in the academy for a year. Here at this academy, it never gets any easier. The instructor takes them outside and initiates a physical fitness test without any prior warning whatsoever. They all run, and most of them are keeping a good pace, with the exception of Aaron, of course. He is already on the ground, breathing heavily. Everyone is getting farther and farther away from him, but he can't even take another step. No, he gets up and begins to run. Compared to what the man in his dream endured, this is nothing. Aaron wants to be just like him, to be on par with him, and so he must overcome the lazy lord he used to be. The other instructor acknowledges that he didn't expect him to last this long, but then Aaron stumbles and begins to fall. This instructor rushes up to him at insanely fast speed and catches him before he could fall down. Though what's this? Aaron didn't just stumble, he fainted. He pushed his weak body so much that he ended up draining it to the point of unconsciousness. When Aaron opens his eyes, he is in the recovery room. An instructor named Rune Tarhal informs him that he used his powers to help him recover. He also comments that he has a feeling he'll be seeing our boy Aaron in the recovery room quite often. The instructor then gives Aaron the rankings of the physical fitness test. Of course, he is dead last, but since this isn't going to be a part of the midterm and the final exams, he can simply try harder next time. The instructor also states that these rankings are going to change quite a lot during the year, so not to worry about them too much, but Aaron doesn't seem bothered at all. Anyways, now that he has recovered, he is sent to join the other trainees in the classroom. The instructor from before who caught Aaron before he could fall down is the one taking their class. His name is Karaka, and he also reveals that daily schedule for the trainees from here on out. Every day they'll wake up at 6 a.m. and be done with breakfast by 8. From 8 to 12 is the morning training. From 12 to 13 is the lunch break. Then afternoon training from 13 to 17. Dinner from 17 to 18. And the final hour of the day will be about mental training as well as a liberal arts class. The trainees will have some free time for themselves after they are done with the day's schedule, which they are welcome to use if they want to train themselves on their own. And if anything changes, they'll be informed in advance. But what the instructor says next completely catches Aaron off guard. He states that all weapon training is forbidden, not good. This means Aaron can't train with the sword on his own. This comes across as a shock to him. Later, Brett Lloyd enters the gym with 2 of his friends. The gym is stacked with trainees trying to improve themselves, but the one who stands out the most is undoubtedly Ilya Lindsay. Just watching her overwhelms Brett. She makes him feel so inferior that he doesn't even feel jealous. After her, Brett notices the Lazy Lord, who is trying his best to lift, but it's not that easy, is it? Then Brett looks toward a red-haired girl named Judith. She is a commoner, and the one who placed second in the physical fitness exam. Brett can't beat Ilya, but he has to beat her. Brett and Judith get a little argumentative, but when they both turn, they witness Ilya Lindsay walking up to the Lazy Lord, Aaron. She wants to talk to him for a minute. It isn't anything major. She just tells him something and leaves. But because Brett and Judith hold her in such high regard, they become curious as to what she told Aaron. After Ilya leaves the gym, Judith walks up to Aaron and asks him about what she said. He explains that she told him about the proper posture and what training equipment to use. That's all there is to it. Of course, Judith thinks he's lying. No way. Did she tell him something so simple? She asks him if they are lovers, but not really because this is the first time Aaron talked to Ilya. Judith just excuses herself and goes back to training. And then it's Brett who wants to know what Ilya told him, and looks like he also wants to know what Judith asked him about. Anyways, a month goes by of doing the same routine every day without any actual sword training whatsoever. Ilya is now personally training Aaron, helping him with the basics. Brett isn't concerned about either of the two. He knows he can never beat Ilya, and he knows that there is nothing to worry about when it comes to the Lazy Lord. He thinks that Aaron bribed his way here, and so even though he may be putting in effort right now, it won't be long before the Lazy Lord goes back to his old ways. Alright, so Brett isn't worried about Ilya or Aaron, but the one he is worried about is Judith. She puts in an extraordinary amount of effort, and she also shows up earlier than everyone else to run. Brett knows that the only thing standing between him and second place is Judith, and so he is not going to let her beat him. Just like that, 3 months pass by. The majority of the trainees have already quit, but that is to be expected considering the nature of this academy. The instructors comment that the talented trio, Judith, Brett, and Ilya, continue training on their own, and then there is the lazy. No, they can't call him lazy anymore. Aaron has made tremendous progress and looks like it's finally time for midterms. Their exam will be like an obstacle course that they have to finish within the allotted time. As long as passing goes, rankings are irrelevant. One just needs to clear it within the given time. However, for those who rank in the top 5, the academy head will personally award them. The exam is going to take place in 10 days. There won't be any classes during that time, which means the trainees are free to use their time however they want. After the announcement is over, Brett considers his position. He's confident that he can make it in the top 5, no problem. But whenever he sees Aaron, he feels uneasy. Later in the gym, Judith hits a new PR. Though when she turns around and sees Aaron struggle like usual, she realizes that he has shown unbelievable growth in the past 3 months. This makes her wonder if she has less willpower than the one referred to as the Lazy Lord. Unacceptable. She goes back to training right after hitting a new PR. At one instance, as the instructors are observing the trainees training in the gym, the head sword master shows up. He observes the students and shares his thoughts with the instructors. For Ilya Lindsay, he calls her a poor thing, who should have walked her own unique path, considering her extraordinary talent. For Judith, he realizes that she is overdoing it, and asks the instructors if they have warned her against overworking. They did, but she is about as stubborn as one can get. So, the head swordmaster, Ian, personally goes up to her to make her stop, but she replies that she'll only stop if he gives her a good enough reason, which he couldn't. The head swordmaster then asks about Aaron Ferreira. He had been squatting straight for the past 30 minutes. It was so intense that the head swordmaster tells the instructor to leave him alone. In his words, he states that this boy's mind has complete control over his body. That night, Aaron goes to bed, all exhausted. He wonders a little about Brett and Judith. Those two have become more conscious of him. He also thinks about why Ilya is helping him, since she doesn't seem like someone who'd help others out of pity. Aaron closes his eyes with the intention to not think about things like these, but this takes him to a place in his head, a place that personifies his bed and feels like a mother's warmth. It feels nice. But then the strange man from the dream slashes it all with his blade and opens up the entire world for Aaron. Aaron tells the metaphorical representation of his bed that he is thankful for everything, but he should go now. And so Aaron walks with a body that now brims with life. This is the story so far. Definitely let me know if you want me to cover the chapters from here on out. I can't wait for y'all to see his performance in the trials and final exam. Leave your thoughts in the comments section down below. A sincere like and subscribe will be much appreciated. See you guys on our next video.